projection is key in all things in the world.
Hi, I'm Robin Stella, Board of Ed Vice President. Excuse my voice today, but I'll be as loud as I can. I'd like to welcome all of you on your Saturday morning to come and help us with this process. I'd like to thank Mrs. Minuise for coming. I see a lot of building principals and members of central administration, and of course Dr. George, and our Schoolhouse Strategies team over here. So this is really the first step in the strategic planning process. We really want the public to help shape the next 5 years of the children's education. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, including budget cuts, but we want to still offer the same quality education that our children and families have become accustomed to. So how do we do that? That's where you all come in. We really need to work together, because it's not the board's strategic plan or the administration's strategic plan. This is Middletown's strategic plan. So you're all a very big part in this. Thank you so much.
Welcome everybody, Bill George, Superintendent. This actually turned out to be a really good turnout. I was a little nervous at 9:15, but everybody got here. We're really grateful for all of you taking the time to come here. Schoolhouse Strategies, I would be remiss if I just didn't give you a little background. On cue, that's perfect, on cue.
The important stuff on the way.
Lynn Strickland. So I've had over the years the opportunity to really see Lynn work. For 24 years she was with the Garden State Coalition, and as the executive director for the Garden State Coalition, she would work and lobby in Trenton, across the state, as an advocate for suburban public school districts, and done an amazing job. So going back to my time in Hazlitt and and through Middletown at central office, I really got to see Lynn work. Most recently, when I was in Trenton advocating for special education funding, Lynn Strickland was standing right alongside Deborah Wright and I as we were really telling our story as it relates to a decrease in enrollment, that was overall enrollment, that was leading to a decrease in state aid, but an increase in special education costs that really were not fairly funded. And Lynn has written an op-ed piece on that. If you Google her, it comes up. An expert on special education, an expert on funding in education. And I was very grateful for the board that they chose to go in a direction to bring in Schoolhouse Strategies. Commissioner Hespy has had a long, illustrious public career. He has served as a college president. He has served as a first assistant to the Attorney General, and of course, Commissioner of Education. And I remember when I was a teacher in Long Branch, I was assistant principal in Long Branch Middle School.
Yes.
When Commissioner Hespy came to Long Branch
visit.
And how exciting that was to have a commissioner.
Joe, so it was great, yeah.
So thank you and welcome, and your expertise is valued. Thank you very much.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So how can we get energetic here? Want to do push-ups, jumping jacks? Anyone got a good joke? No? Well, we're going to do strategic planning then, which I'm sure is going to perk everyone up, because we're going to have, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun for you. We're going to introduce what we're trying to do, why we're all here, introduce the concept of strategic planning. We're going to review some data about the district, and then we're going to take this microphone and we're going to try to get it around this room and try to get everyone's thoughts and perspectives on the challenges the district's facing, the accomplishments of the district, some opportunities you might see, some things you might want to change. And so we're going to have quite a bit of fun, and it's great to see so many folks out at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. Actually, I was driving up and I saw all these cars, and then I saw people unloading lawn chairs, and I said, well, this is going to be a packed house if people are bringing their own chairs, but I tend to think they passed us by and went into the soccer fields instead. But still, it was good to see all of that and see all of you here. So that, I'm not sure what happened here. Hopefully just one little click and we're back on. So let's start with an overview of strategic planning. What is strategic planning all about? What we're trying to accomplish this morning. As both our board vice president and your superintendent indicated, this is a partnership with you. This is where the community comes literally to the table and helps us look through the data, helps us with their own personal experiences and developing new directions for the district. Middletown is very devoted to a cyclical strategic planning process, so pretty much every 5 years they go through this to make certain that they're informed and they're connected, and that actually is the goal of a good strategic planning process. How do you improve? You know, like many of your moms, my mom would always say to me that you can do anything if you set your mind to it, right? So strategic planning is really 10,000, 20,000 minds all coming to bear on how we can help the district help our children succeed. And so that's really the philosophy here, is that we want everyone's mind to focus on this improvement process. And if we do, I think we're going to be very happy with where we go. But as you look at this overview, it's a proactive change process. So we're trying to get in front of issues. You don't want to be solving problems that you can avoid. And if you think about that, that's where the board's philosophy about strategic planning, I think, is so helpful to the community, because they're trying to get in front of these issues before they become problems. Now, oftentimes, we look for the best quote we can possibly come up with to describe what we're trying to do in better words than I could ever come up with on my own. And I thought this quote was excellent. You know, words just to pull out a disciplined effort. So we're going to be disciplined as we approach this. We're going to do issues sequentially, leading to the development of strategic objectives for the district. We're going to look at present evidence and present data to inform what we want to accomplish in the future. So this is really a very future-oriented process. We're not trying to solve for today, we're trying to solve for the next 5-year period of time. And so I think this gives you a good sense of what we're trying to accomplish. Many benefits of strategic planning. One of my most important benefits to me is it connects the community together. And in the 3 sessions we've had over the past Thursday night, Friday morning, Saturday morning, so in the past 2.5 days, we've seen pretty much all segments of the community, folks from parents and staff and teachers, administrators, all types of folks coming out. Hopefully we'll get a couple of students this morning who can share some of their perspectives with us. But that's one of our goals, is to connect, communicate, help us communicate what we're seeing, what you're seeing, and hopefully we can get on the same page. Oftentimes personal experiences need to be shared in order for people to understand your perspective. It helps us prioritize. Oftentimes a district might have, I want to do 20 or 30 things, but you can't often do 20 or 30 things, not well. So it helps us prioritize and then deploy resources to how we prioritize. At its heart, this is an inquiry-based process. It's a process of discovery where we want to find out what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what information do you need in order to help us and guide the district. So oftentimes we want to have these questions out front. These are the questions that we're going to be posing to you in some a little different format in a second. But think of it as that process of discovery, trying to surface critical issues, get it onto the surface. When something is underneath the surface, very difficult to deal with. When it's on the surface, you can deal with it. And so that's part of the goal, is to surface issues. what is the process in a nutshell? Well, in a nutshell, this slide tells you the process. All good planning processes, whether or not it's a strategic planning process or your own self-improvement process for yourself, going to the gym more often, really has three components. The first is you want to aspire. What do you want to do? What's your goals? What are your values? And we look at that in terms of a vision and a mission and beliefs for the school district. And that will be, we'll be looking at that heavily in the next session, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. Then we want to, based on what we want, what that vision and mission is, we want to develop strategies to accomplish it. So that's our second part, improvement. We want to set goals and objectives for ourselves, and that's going to happen within the context of our strategic planning forums. And then we want accountability. No good improvement plan is going to succeed unless there's commitment to it, commitment over time, you track how well you're doing, and then you're open to changes. If your one strategy doesn't seem to be getting you where you want to go in accomplishing your mission, you should be able to change that and say, no, let's try a different strategy. It's what we call an organic process. So, how is this going to work here in Middletown? So, the first step, of course, is the planning step. So the board and the administration have developed a liaison group that works with us, that helps us put all the communications out, all the outreach out. There's a dedicated web page where you'll find all of the presentations, all of the dates, and we'll be adding to that. We'll be adding minutes of our forums, so you can see not just what, certainly you're going to know what happened at your forum, the forum this morning, but you're also going to be able to see what happened in the other forums Thursday night and Friday morning. We also then develop as much data as we can possibly develop regarding the district. Now, this data doesn't conclude anything. It doesn't tell you what to do. All it really does is helps you think about the district in different ways, inform you about parts of the district you might never have known about, but it doesn't tell you what to do. It informs the process, but doesn't conclude in any way, shape, or form. And you should feel free during this process to say, well, I would like different types of data. I would like updated data. I would like, you didn't give us any data on this particular area. Could we see some of that? And we're certainly able to do that for you. Now, the second step is where we are. So if you ever go to Disneyland, you have that map, you are here. So we are, first forum that's where we are. This is the forum where we want to share as much as we possibly can about your experience in the district, where you think the district should be doing, what it should be doing 5 years from now, what it should be doing tomorrow. So this is our opportunity to surface all of these various perspectives. And then in the second and third forum, we're going to build off of that. In the second forum, we're going to develop that vision and mission. And the third forum, we're going to be working on discrete strategies. And those are going to be heavy group work. We're going to actually put you to work a little bit and help us prepare these plans that we can provide to the Board of Education. So everyone hopefully will come back for the second and third forum. Oftentimes we see that we have a very good turnout for the first forum, but then a little much smaller for forums 2 and 3. But that's where the action is. That's where the real meaningfulness is, because you're actually sitting around that table and working out what should be the priority goals for the district. And I promise you, I will keep it entertaining and fun, so it's better than watching TV, I guarantee you. Step 3, we're finished with our work. We give it to the board. The board will review it, will add its input, will adopt it, and then we get into the last bullet there, tracking performance. How well is the district accomplishing those goals. We're going to use all the data that we've assembled in order to develop metrics and timelines, and there will be that annual review where we'll all be able to look at how the district is improving with what we've done. All right, so that is our strategic planning process. So before I move on to an overview of the district through the lens of data, let me just stop and just see if there's any questions about why we're here, where we're going, what we want to do, and how we're going to do it. Okay, excellent. All right. You're all going to have a great opportunity for input, so keep your voices, save your voices here. All right, so we are going right to our district profile. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to go through every single one of these slides. There are 50 slides. It would probably take us to the afternoon. I'm sure everyone here has an afternoon with events filled. So this is on the website. This is a district profile on the website. It's in a PowerPoint format, so it's easy for you to navigate. And I would urge you to go and take a look at it because it's going to give you a tremendous amount of information about the school district. But again, the data doesn't tell you what to do. It just informs and raises, oftentimes, I was a professor for 10 years down at Rowan University. I used to always tell my students as they're working on their various papers, it's okay to ask more questions. It's okay if you did a study or a survey and you wound up asking more questions. That's actually a very good part of the process. So think about it that way. You're going to look through that and say, I don't think that data is right. Let me know that. Or Lynn or Stacy, who I don't think we introduced Stacy. So Dave, Lynn, Stacy. Stacy is our strategic planning expert and is capturing everything that happens here. So she's great. By the way, told every comment's anonymous and things like that. So we're never going to group your name with a comment or anything like that. But she is the one who's going to help us with the data. And there's a tremendous amount of data coming in. There's a survey that hopefully you've seen that survey. It's an online survey. It takes maybe 10 minutes. And so far, we're probably over 1,000 responses on that.
Well, it's closer to 3,000.
3,000 responses.
Congratulations to you all.
Unbelievable.
Amazing, really. And 10,000 or so written comments in.
So we're going to be taking all of that. And that's why you want to come to the forum too, because we're going to be reporting back to you what all these surveys are telling us. And we can take that into account as we continue to work together. So lots of data is coming in, and that data will give us some lenses and some ideas about how we look at these slides that are coming up. So I'm going to move through them rapidly, but just think about, oftentimes, people see data in different ways, but the way I see it, we're constantly being bombarded with data. As you drove here this morning, your car was giving you constant data, probably gave you so much data you didn't even want to see most of it. Some of the things you wanted to see, who's in your blind spot, might help you back up, you're running out of gas, your engine's about to blow up, but these are all data that's coming into you, and you shouldn't ignore the data. You're sifting through this data. Some data you want to pay attention to, some data you want someone else to look at. If the engine red light goes on, you want to go to a mechanic and he or she was gonna look at that gas cap. Maybe it's just a gas cap. Put it back on, the engine's fine. It could also be that you've got a $3,000 engine repair in front of you. But you don't ignore the data, but it doesn't tell you in and of itself what to do. And so think about the data in that way. It's helpful to us. It's going to inform the process, but it doesn't conclude and it doesn't dictate our future response. Okay? All right. Well, that was me. It also tells you if there's a screw loose behind the projector, me being the loose screw there, so sorry about that. Yeah, exactly. All right, so first piece of data, we want to understand more. Most of you have lived here for quite some time, understand Middletown, but you also want to understand its uniqueness in many ways, its history in many ways. Middletown's got a rich colonial history, but it's also been an educational leader You know, I started in education back in the 80s, so since that point in time, Middletown's always been an educational leader. It's always been looked at the forefront of so many educational initiatives. So that's important context. Third, Middletown's very unique. It is the largest, as far as I know, the largest suburban community in New Jersey. So putting outside the major cities like Patterson and Newark and Jersey City. It is a very large population-wise, geography-wise. It's one of the largest suburban communities in New Jersey. And that uniqueness brings advantages and it brings challenges. You know, some of the challenges, communication is difficult. It's difficult for a school district the size of Middletown to be treated fairly under a one-size-fits-all school funding formula. The state provides aid to all school districts, and that aid is very much a one-size-fits-all. Now, the typical district in New Jersey is probably K-6, K-8 district, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 kids in it. You are not that. You are a K-12 district with 17 schools, 17 schools, and one-size-fits-all funding formula is not going to fit you. And so that uniqueness has some distinct advantages. You can do a lot programmatically, do a lot in extracurriculars, but it does have built-in disadvantages that we should be cognizant of as we work through strategic planning. The next slide you'll find on the district profile on the website, our current mission, current beliefs and vision, your current strategic plan is here. You'll see goals area, then your discrete district goals, community partnerships, student success initiatives. So we're going to deep dive into that current mission and vision and values and goals at Forum 2, because that's where we're going to ask you to review those and get your feedback on whether any of those should change as we go into this next cycle of strategic planning. Everything runs off those district mission, your goals, your values, and so we want to make certain we're buttoned down on that. The next area in this super long district profile on the website are your current accomplishments. As we go into strategic planning, you're always going to ask a couple of questions. First question is, what does the district do well? Second question is, what should change? How can we help our students succeed even better? What challenges lie in front of the district? What opportunities are there or will be there if we take certain pathways? So this is answering that first question. What does the district do well? The good news is the district does quite a lot well, and we have tried to lay out for you New Jersey Future Ready status. We have honors in some of our clubs, our chorus, our band, some athletic championships, AP program, National Merit Scholars, and I'm very impressed with the new Arts Academy. Student success initiatives, many recent accomplishments here, expanded gifted and talented programs, the use of technology, mental and behavioral supports, which I think is huge. The fourth bullet down, I think that's just huge. Districts need to work with the whole child, the whole student, which means you're going to have to develop supports of this nature to make certain that they're getting the full advantage of your, not only your education, but also as they develop into adults as well. The district, the fifth bullet down, is conducting a school-wide special education review, which is very important to always be looking at how well we serve our special populations. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment. Your technology plan, is excellent, both instructional and operational. Again, I'm just pointing out some highlights so you have a sense of what is on the website. School climate and culture indicators, again, trying to support the whole child here. Through responsive classroom, social emotional support, some professional development to help in that regard, having student leadership support as well. Academic overview, I'm just going to come at this from what would I have loved to have had in place when I was a superintendent, so we'll just look at it from that perspective very quickly because there's so many here. Again, the student supports, the responsive classroom, STEM scopes, preparing students for STEM careers in college remains a tremendous challenge for all districts. The rigors of college science and technology and engineering and math programs is very high, and students need to go in fully prepared for those. So everything that allows students to get that leg up in the STEM world, I think is just excellent. That's just at the elementary school, by the way. Just stay focused. We're just at the elementary school. The middle school, the personalized learning, taking every student from where they are, using their interests and moving them ahead. Student advising in middle school and increasing the number of electives. At the high school level, 27 plus growing advanced placement courses, dual credit programs. As superintendent mentioned, I was a president of Burlington County College, and every time I would go out and speak to anyone, whether it was at Starbucks or Burger King or in front of larger groups, I would tell them, your biggest bang for your buck is to get credits before you graduate high school. And here, if you have, I'm at the second bullet down, 13 dual credit courses. That's 39 credits. It's a year of tuition in your pocket there. So I love all of that. And also like the fifth bullet down, the Early College Academy with your community college here in Monmouth County, Brookdale. All just excellent. Having conversations, certainly second bullet from the bottom, electronic textbooks. Definitely should be having those conversations when your child heads off to college. Not going to see many paper textbooks at that point in time. Athletics, I'm just going to focus on the fact that you have extracurriculars in all your 3 levels here and over 50 student organizations at the high school level. Enrichment and extracurriculars are so important that is something to remark on. Staff professional development, continual training for staff, supporting them, helping them improve the learning process. A lot going on there. And last, accomplishments in community and public relations. As I indicated, I think one of the unique challenges that a district the size of Middletown is going to have is making certain that everyone gets connected. Big places have challenges there, but a lot of different pathways, multi-dimensional pathways are being turned to here. Next chapter in our district data profile, we're going to look at some student achievement and school climate indicators. These presentations get delivered annually, if not more often, at each one of your schools. So I'm not going to belabor this. This information is out there. We just organized it, perhaps in a slightly different way. But this information you probably see and you probably understand. So I'm just going to hit some, again, just some highlights. The ultimate student performance data point is what happens to your students when they hit 12th grade. Good news is that both your high schools are outperforming the state average in terms of the graduation rate. That's good to see because that ultimately is what folks at the state and federal level are going to look at. How well do you do in terms of that ultimate mission of graduating students? We can look at beyond graduation rates. We look at SAT scores. Both schools outperform the state average. Participation in AP, dual enrollment. I love to see that, of course. State averages, if you go to the right-hand column, the fourth row down, state average is 13.3%, dual enrollment in both your high schools is over 30%, which is tremendous. They got a huge leg up going to college. And parents, you get to pay less, which is always desirable. Post-secondary enrollment above the state average as well in both high schools. In terms of park data, you've seen this, I'm sure, at your local school level. All the elementary schools as a whole exceed the state average. And at the secondary level, we see the middle school level as a whole, the middle schools also exceed the state average. Student growth is a calculation done by the state of New Jersey that examines how well a district moves individual students from one grade to the next, how well they do on student performance indicators. These are only calculated in the 3 to 8 grades, so you're not going to see a tremendous amount of data here, but overall there are 3 categories of growth: low growth, where you need to be concerned; moderate growth, where you're going to see the vast bulk of school districts; and then high growth, where you'll see a much smaller number. Middletown schools pretty much across the board are in that moderate growth category, although the middle schools, very remarkably, the middle schools are showing some high growth, which I think at the middle school level, everyone with a student in middle school and all the staff and faculty should pat themselves on the back, because that is not easy to do. School climate indicators, you'll just see chronic absenteeism, safety and violence, certainly very positive outcomes for keeping students safe here in Middletown. Okay, next chapter, community and student demographic data. So this gives us some sense of what's going to be happening in your community when we look at census data. So this is census data, Census 2000, Census 2010, American Community Survey 2017. What's American Community Survey 2017, ACS 2017? That's a estimate developed by the Census Office of what is happening in between the 2 census dates. So between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, which has not yet been conducted, this is an estimate of will we continue to see trend lines occurring. And so your population basically is stable. Looks like it's going to be might be declining a little bit according to, if we're looking at the ACS, but for the most part stable. But one thing to note here, if you go to the under 18 population and the median age, you'll see the under 18 population looks like it's going to start declining, and the median age is going to start going up. So if your demographer was here, and a demographer is someone hired by your school district to look at your enrollments over time to give you an idea of where your enrollments might be going, the demographer would look at that and pretty much estimate maybe birth rates are going to go down or continue to go down in the district in the future. But again, this data doesn't conclude anything. It just suggests your demographer is going to go through a host of calculations and try to give you his best estimate of what this means for your district. But it does suggest that you might see a decline in your school enrollments over time. We'll talk about the demographics in a second. Diversity seems to be growing slightly over this entire period. So from your demographic study. So the district will periodically do a demographic study. The Department of Education requires you to do that if you're going to have any facility, major facility expansion or improvement. Again, this doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't conclude anything. It just says this is what a demographer believes based upon a review of the census data, a review of birth rates, a review of new developments in the community, what these projections are. These are based on a demographic study that was done a few years back. And based on that study, it's suggesting here that you're going to see a decline of enrollments of 626 across your 12 elementary schools. What does class size look at? So we're going to look at class sizes in the elementary grades. Very important for most parents is what classroom and how many kids are going to be in it. And so kindergarten level, and I'm going to roll through these. Hopefully you'll go back and we'll take a much a longer look at this data set on the website. But just if you could, just let's focus on that lower right-hand last column on the right-hand side, to go all the way this way and down. It gives you the average class size in kindergarten, 20.9, grade 1, 20.1, grade 2, 22.5, grade 3, 21.3, 4, 23.4, and grade 5, 21.9. So we'll constantly, I think, talk about class sizes because we know it's a big issue for parents, and we wanted to make certain we had some information in this data deck on class sizes. Let's move to enrollments at the secondary level. Here's where you have mixed data. You have the middle schools suggesting a decline, the high schools suggesting a stability there with a net decrease over this period of 138 students. So we're looking at, as we did for the secondary, looking at this whole period from 2015 through 2022. That's where the projection from that demographic study ends. And that's why this will help us ask questions. It'll give us a sense of what the demographer thinks is going to happen, but there are limits to this data, as there are limits to every data set we'll be looking at. One thing always to focus on, and I do a fair amount of strategic planning, helping districts work through all types of different issues. And what I like to ask is, to what extent can students move across attendance zones? So to what extent do we have a ability to go from one school to another, even outside that neighborhood attendance zone, that catchment area for your elementary school? And so you'll see here, you have a fair number of students attending school outside of their catchment area, 162 in special education programs and over 200 in your general education population. So the next data set we're going to look at is your special populations. And at the very bottom, you'll see the four we're going to look at here, your special education populations, so students with an individual education plan, an IEP, Section 504 students who might have some disability but don't need a special education program, just need accommodations, and English language learners, that number is very small, and students from disadvantaged backgrounds, that number is stable across time, so is your Section 504. But your special education population, you see, is growing. That is a sizable increase. Now, in some ways, that's good. Students with special needs are going to get special programs and services, but on the other hand, that is going to require a budgetary reaction from the district. The district's going to have to find resources for that, and you can see here in a tighter pattern what exactly that change looks like over this 3-year, 4-year period. We're going from 1677 to 1984, which is a pretty substantial upward slope. How do we do in terms of other districts? So we've compiled some data from the Department of Education's comparative data files about a whole bunch of indicators. We have some staffing indicators. We have some teacher experience indicators. We have budget indicators. So we'll stop here and look at these budget indicators, but I think they're worth remarking on here. So look at your budgetary cost. First column, you have the per pupil amount, and then you have your peer ranking. Your peer ranking is K-12, large K-12 school districts in New Jersey. So that's your peer ranking. There are 97 of those. And you're 28th out of 97 in terms of your spending, which means you're in the lower tier of spending. It means you're operating very efficiently in comparison with your peer group. But that's not the indicator I focus on. I focus on the second indicator. How much of that money is actually getting into the classroom? And here, you're in the mid-range, so you're at the lowest range in terms of overall cost, but you're doing a great job in pushing money into the classroom, which is, I think, where you want to be. You want to be able to push as much into the classroom, but still be able to keep taxes down, and being efficient is one of the ways you can do that. Facilities, if you take those demographic projections, and look at enrollments. These are enrollments all up to current. What the capacity is. So on the third column over, you'll see capacity. That's what each individual school can hold. Then the actual enrollments this fall are in the 9-15-19 enrollment. Then do you have excess capacity or not? Excess capacity is shown in a positive number. If you're overcrowded, it will show up as a negative number. Again, all this is just plotting capacity. So oftentimes people ask, well, how do you calculate capacity? Well, capacity is a formula which is given to us by the Department of Education. It's a square footage formula. Now, that does not take into account the usage of your spaces. If you have older school buildings that weren't designed for STEM labs or technology labs or small group work, your space utilization is probably not going to be as good, and the square footages might not apply as well to a new school recently constructed that has architecturally been designed for those spaces. So take all of this with that understanding that there's limits to this data, but it does, again, ask questions. It's going to raise for you questions in terms of school building usage and efficiency. It doesn't conclude anything. It just helps us ask more questions. At the secondary level, we will see, again, excess capacity in the last column, with a net of 492. Recent capital improvements, you want to think about what your investments in your facilities are. At the same time, you're looking at your facility usage, because that then allows you to ask the right questions, and the district is definitely investing heavily in its facilities. Financial information, as the board vice president noted in opening, the district is going to be facing some financial challenges, some severe financial challenges because of those reductions in state school aid I referred to at the very beginning of our morning together. So you have your two revenue sources. Normally, your two major revenue sources are normally going to be funding you get from the state and funding you get from your local taxpayers. Funding from the state we know is going to be going down. Funding from your local taxpayers we know is capped. It's limited unless the voters approve going above those limitations, those caps. If nothing changes, those bottom lines are what you'll see in the future as we project out that there will be sizable deficits developing. Just a percentage depiction of what those deficits will look like, growing to some 8% of overall levy. And here's just some of you might be interested in some deeper elementary enrollment analysis, and this slide is helpful to you. So with that all said, we have reached, thankfully, I think from your perspective, we reached the end of that highlights of that data profile. Again, the data helps us ask questions. It helps us view our personal experiences in a more disciplined way. So hopefully you will take that into context. So now we're going to turn to what we all are here for, and that's to hear from you. So for the next hour and probably a little bit more, we're going to hear from your perspectives, what you think. What we'd like to hear, what are your experiences with the district? What do you think the district should do differently? What challenges do you think are before the district? And what opportunities? If you could change one thing, what would it be? So pretty open-ended, but don't forget, we want a meaningful exchange of ideas here. So if you want, if you come up and say, we love the Gifted and Talented program here, let us know why. Let us know what you think is working. If you don't like it, then tell us what maybe should be changed there. So give us a little bit more than a position. So this is fundamentally a different input opportunity for you than a lot of other inputs, because we actually are going to have this ability to drill down. I would ask that we have a lot of people here, so if you can keep your comments to 2 minutes, we're going to walk around. Lynn will help us walk around a little bit. And hold the mic for you so we can keep moving. So try to keep it to 2 minutes, maybe even write on the index card what you want to say, so when you're at the mic, you're very clear on what you're trying to communicate. If you see someone who's come to the mic and said exactly the same thing as you, maybe just fill out the index card and just let us know that, that you concur with that. Doesn't matter how you provide your input. You can provide it on the mic. You can provide it on the index card. You can come up and chat with us after the meeting. You can fill out the survey. It's all going into the same place. It's all going into our minutes, and when we report out, you will see it regardless of how you gave us the information. If you have to leave before you get to the mic, please take an index card with you. Contact Lynn or myself. We have cards, I think, available. It's out there. So do it that way. The important thing is to let us know what you think. Be respectful, be courteous. If you haven't turned off your cell phone, I think everyone has, because we haven't had one beep. So thanks for that. That was a very, very good crew at 9:30 in the morning. Turn it off because we don't want to distract anyone. This is oftentimes pretty nervous for people to get up in front of a full room. So let's be kind to all of our fellow Middletownians. What is that, by the way? What do you refer to yourselves as? We're going with Middletownians until someone comes up with something far better than that, I'm sure. So be kind to each other. And with that all said, what we're going to do is we're going to take one row at a time. So why don't we take that row, Lynn, if you think that's the right way to go. And raise your hand, and Lynn will come to you, and then we're just going to go up and down. And Lynn and I might ask you questions to get a better sense of what you're trying to convey or make it more meaningful for us. Stacy is going to take it down, the essence of what you're saying, so we have that ability to put together minutes. With that said, you ready to go? All right, Lynn, it's all yours. Lynn, I don't know if the mic is on. Why don't you use, this one is actually,
How's that?
yeah, and Lynn, if you just remind everyone, give us a sense of your relationship to the school. Or you're a parent of elementary, or a parent of a middle, a teacher, a high school, a grandparent, a business, a religious leader in the district. Just give us a sense of what your relationship is, and by the way, and also where in this geographically large place you live. Give us a school, give us a zip code, give us the nearest Wawa, which I found is very helpful once you get below 195 in New Jersey.
So I just wanted to suggest too, there's a box in the back when you write a card out or whatever, please drop it off in the box on the way out. Thank you. Okay, rock and roll.
All right, thanks.
Good morning, I'm Heather Safford, and I'm a parent of a fourth grader at Navy School. I'm also the co-leader of Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners, or MTFODL, a special education.
If we could do this, the acoustics are, this is a cafeteria, so the acoustics by nature are not good, so
Okay.
Lynn, we're gonna have to figure out how
How's
to,
that? Is that loud?
Better. Just
that is perfect. So what's that, like 2 inches away from the face here?
And I also press the sound button. More.
So I'm a co-leader of the Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners, a special education parent advisory group. I want to highlight a few things that the district does well along the lines of parent engagement. We have a huge district, and the PIC, or Parent Information Committee, is an important place for information exchange between parent organizations and all 17 schools, parents, and then district administration. Our parent advisory group, MTFODL, is glad to be part of this monthly exchange, and despite the large number of schools, it gives us a place to feel like one community. Historically, MTFODL has also met with administrators every other month to relay needs of parents and discuss programs and policies that impact the special ed community. These routine and established channels of communication have helped keep information flowing and help parents feel like their point of view really matters. We appreciate these opportunities. One of our recommendations is that Middletown needs to ensure better planning to prevent redistricting and the movement of special education classes. As a parent at Navasink, it was really hard to hear parents' concerns about disrupting their kids' education and having to move to another school due to the removal of the modular. Although parents initially reported that the moves went well, later on we did hear from some parents that they regretted it as it did cause some setbacks for their kids. So we need to plan better so we keep our most vulnerable students in their home or in their school communities and ensure more consistency. For years, our district has made a lot of progress in supporting students who need special ed services to be successful. We need to maintain what is working well and keep pushing for improvement. Another recommendation is to increase inclusion. According to the New Jersey Department of Ed, 30 years of research has shown that inclusive education is more effective and shows better results for students academically, socially, and emotionally. The National Committee on Disability states, research demonstrates that inclusive education results in the best learning outcomes and that there's no research supporting that supports the value of segregated special education classes in schools. So inclusion requires collaboration between our special ed and curriculum departments to ensure that student needs are properly supported and met. Our district also has some outstanding teachers who have worked really hard to include our students, and these efforts need to be encouraged and expanded. Our district's responsive classroom, personalized learning initiatives that emphasizes social and emotional learning are positive steps forward. Teaching kids to understand and accept differences creates the freedom that's needed for all students to be themselves and belong. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
you can keep going.
well, I am just, I'm looking for an arm to come up. Come on.
Trouble hearing.
I'll tell you what, I'm
We captured.
So I'm gonna go here next, and then I'll get over there.
Hi, I'm a village parent. I have 2 sons. I was at Thursday night's meeting, and I was at Thursday night's meeting, and just in thinking about all the data and numbers and comments and things like that, I wanted to come back today because I kind of have a question. I wrote most of my comments down on my note card. I had a question about the numbers. Somebody asked Thursday night if it's a 5-year plan, why don't we have info going 5 years out? And the response was that the demographer, it was impossible for him to get, and he didn't have that data. But then I remember at a PFA meeting at our school, a board member just 2 weeks ago came and was mentioning the class of 2025 at Thompson, which is one of my son's classes, is going to be 130 kids over. So I wanted to know how they could have that data and the demographer couldn't have the data. I don't expect a direct, I don't know if you can give a direct answer, but I also have a piggyback on that.
Yeah, sure. So let's do one at a time.
Okay.
So the demographic study, there's a demographer who was hired by the district. And the demographer did a 5-year projection a few years back. And that's why this ends in 2022, because it was a 5-year picture, but began when the demographer delivered his report a few years ago. That's the answer to why this ends at 2022. The district also does its own projections. It's very super wise ideas.
Yeah, I can't hear.
Does its own projections, and I'm gathering that's why they're giving you an estimate. At the high school levels, you can get a rough sense just from your freshman class what that might look like 4 years from now, taking into account whatever the cohort survival rate is for the high school. But that's the answer. It's a dated demographic study. All this data, it's the best data we could find. And as I indicated, the data doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't conclude anything. It just gives us some information. And the demographic study has come up at each forum. And I think that's an issue which we're going to have to take a deeper dive into, because if the district's going to be taking strategic action based upon projections of enrollment, we want to make certain we have a common understanding of what that is. And the limits of the demographic study and really the guidance we have from the demographer ends in 22.
So maybe the Board of Ed and the demographer can merge their information. So if this information is a few years back, then there's no possible way they could take into consideration all the new development that wouldn't have even been approved. And I know 3 developments for Middletown Village alone, and I mean, redistricting I think is on everyone's mind, and I know Middletown Village is like probably one of the main schools that's going to be vulnerable to that. So I think it's really important to get that information, and all those 500 new condos and townhouses, I think that needs to be accounted for.
You will be having, definitely, the board has been at every forum, the administration's been at every forum. So they've heard this conversation, and I think they understand the questions and the issues. And having the second forum a month from now gives us that opportunity to have these conversations. But I think everyone's heard that a question loud and clear. If we're going to make important decisions on the data needs to be able to answer that. So, loud and clear received.
Right. Okay. I wasn't at yesterday, so
I just want to also chime in on that with David and say that, that is something that's very much a concern. And when information gets a little stale, information has to get updated. So Forum 2 is more of a structure. That kind of conversation, this being the first forum, it's 3 forums, but it's really 1 forum altogether, the beginning. And so moving forward, as Dave said, everybody is hearing this concern loud and clear, and it's legitimate.
So you had a second question. What was that?
No, that was my second question about the new development.
I got a 2 for answer there. All right,
Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Maura Rowan McKenna, and I am a parent whose daughter went to Fairview, my favorite school ever. She goes to Bayshore now, which is amazing, and she is slotted to go to North. I just want parents to be very well aware that when you are talking about high schools North versus South, how hurtful the comments have been about parents possibly having to send their child to North. My child is going to go there. And it's a wonderful school. And I'm tired of hearing that you would rather see broken glass than send your child to high school North. It is very hurtful to my child, who is a good child, who is a smart child, that these children hear these comments from parents. I go to parties, I'm in many different social circles, and they don't realize that my child will go to North when they say what they say. And I am very disappointed, because you want your children to be global citizens, you want your child to be kind to the poor, kind, helpful. And then you're gonna say something about a child that goes to high school north? These are children. They're not grown-ups. And my child is just as important as your child. My child deserves exactly the same thing that your child deserves. So I am tired of the north versus south thing. I grew up here. I grew up in this town. There are people who've come from all different areas, but I grew up here. And it is so sad to me that my child has to feel badly for no reason. No reason at all should she feel sad or bad that she has to go to high school north. It is, you should all be ashamed of yourselves for saying disparaging remarks about any child that goes to high school north. Unacceptable that people make fun of people who go to north, who look at me with pity. Oh, your child has to go to high school north? Shame on you. Shame on you all, whoever has done it. And I've been in rooms with people who have done it to my face, not realizing where my child has to go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Does your child go north yet?
No, she's in Bayshore. She's in seventh
Okay,
grade.
well, don't worry about it, because the kids at North know to shake it off like a duck. And they know they're just as good.
But
So
why should they
don't
have
worry
to
about
even be
that.
subjected?
Yeah, just know, we're not capturing the back and forth, so if you wanted that captured, it's not, all right. No, that's fine, that's fine. I just wanted to make certain you weren't expecting to be captured.
Why my child have to feel badly? She knows, she's only in seventh grade, and she knows.
Let me say that this woman's made a very strong point, and it's heartfelt, and there are a lot of people here who have big hearts that hopefully will listen to. Thank you.
Can I just say something to that? You have to call people out on it. I moved here.
Well, I do.
I moved here from New
Please
York.
be careful.
Yeah, but you have to call people out on it.
That's what she did.
Yes. I moved here from New York. I didn't know the area at all. My husband's
The
from New
mic's
Jersey.
not working. I can't hear.
It's literally keep it within 2 inches of your,
Okay,
of your
can you hear
mouth.
me? Yeah,
In order to
okay.
allow that, I guess.
Okay. Well, when I moved here, I had no idea. We just knew which school names and whatever. We asked our real estate agent why the two high schools. Well, it's a huge community. Are they the same? Yes, they are. And she told us, people will say, on the north side we're better, on the south side we're better. And she said, don't believe it, it's all the same. A few years ago on Facebook, because we have all these pages that could be great, some of them are not, and you hear the same voices say the same thing. So you have to take out the noise. And I get it, like I have to teach my kids how to discern who's saying what's factual versus what's opinion and what's just a gripe. Okay, so my kids will be going to South, I'm at South. I had I live in Brash Farms. I had someone on Facebook say something terrible about the Brash Farms community because of parking at South. It was silly, because she lost her point, right? So I think if you call people out when they say silly things, it's like calling a bully out. You just stop them. And if it's your friend, and I have to tell you, there's something to be said about who you surround yourself with. And you have to weed those people out as well. Because I don't hear any of that from the people. I don't hear someone from South saying North is terrible. I don't hear that. Does it happen? I'm sure, but those are not people I surround myself with. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Right here. All right, everybody's nice. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Allison Marger. Oh, you can I actually went to Middletown schools my whole life, and now my son is a student at the pre-K at Enrollment, which I'd like to compliment for doing an amazing job. They're great program, great teachers, super happy with it. My concern piggybacks off the first woman to speak, which is if the special education population is the fastest growing, why are we not getting, like I was in GET, I get the gifted programs and all that, but the special education program, there's not special education in every elementary school in Middletown. And that's the fastest growing population. So those are the kids that are being transitioned in and out. And they're the kids that need the most help. So I was just saying that the inclusion, there's no inclusion, which is very inundated, old way. Like I'm a special education teacher. So the point is that without elementary, without special education, there's G&T in every school, right? There should be special education in every school. Both kids on both ends of the spectrum need that extra attention. So I guess if that's the fastest growing population, I don't understand why we're not putting more effort into making that an inclusion-based program. And that's it. Oh, and thank you very much to Enrollment. You guys are doing a great school, a great job with my son. I'm very, very happy with the education here. It's just, I worry about when he goes to elementary, because early intervention is really important. You know, that's when you really need the extra help, particularly in the elementary schools. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Cartier. I'm the principal at Middletown High School North, but I just want to give a little background information to everyone. I began my professional career in Middletown. I've taught at 2 elementary schools in world language education, 2 middle schools, again, French and Spanish and reading, and at both high schools. I was assistant principal at High School South, and now I'm presently the principal. This is my 14th year. I'm a Middletown resident. It hurts my heart also when people make comments. The students don't feel that way. They play sports together, they go to parties, they enjoy each other's co-curricular activities and fundraisers. It's terrible that we're using Highway 35 as the demarcation line between one side of the community and the other. Yes, Middletown High School North, on that side of town, we're blue-collar workers, but we're genuine people and we care. I, again, taught and was very active in the High School South community as well. I wish, and I thank this woman for standing up and saying positive things about High School North, and we could say positive things about High School South as well. This is my 4th strategic plan. I was involved with Mr. Skelton, Karen Bilbao, Jill Takis, and now with Dr. George Kempekis, etc. Okay? So this is my 4th one. We do great things at Middletown High School North, as evidenced by the PowerPoint presentation, as well as at High School South. So I want to thank you very much for sticking up for Middletown High School North. We're genuine people. I love it. That's why I'm still working and I'm still there, and I'll do my best until the end of my last breath. Okay, so thank you.
My son goes to Village. My biggest thing about redistricting is piggybacking off of Nicole over there. Clearly, it's very emotional. My husband went to school here, that's Thompson South. So that's why I bought my house here, so they could follow the same path as my husband. So that's why I'm upset that we're redistricting, because that's what our plan was. But things changed, obviously. I think the biggest concern is the middle school. I don't come from a big town, so we went, elementary, middle school, same high school. I think it's that split that's concerning me. Why do Village kids get split? So they should all go to the same high school. You shouldn't be changing where they're going. I think that's my biggest concern.
Thank you very much.
My name is Christine Giuliano. I have 3 boys, 1 at Leonardo and 2 at Bayshore. Mainly focusing on my 7th grader's educational needs. He is dyslexic, and I think Middletown needs to do better for dyslexic children. His teachers have been wonderful. It's not them. It is the pressure that is put on special ed teachers to use the general ed curriculum in their resource rooms and, not really individualized instruction always based on what the kids need. I know Middletown has spent a lot on getting teachers certified in multisensory instruction. However, when your child needs it, it's not always easy to get it, which is confusing to me. Why spend the money training teachers and then not use it on the kids that need it? To me, learning to read is a matter of basically life or death. When you think that 20% of the population has a learning disability, but if you look at prison, 50% of prisoners are dyslexic. So when states are deciding how many prisons to build in 10 years, they look at 3rd grade reading scores because those kids will be 18 in 10 years. That's scary to me. I think that he had a great start at Leonardo School. His special ed teachers are wonderful. Bayshore has been phenomenal. The teachers are wonderful. The building level administration has been wonderful. Whenever I go higher than the building level to try to ask for more, that's where I'm finding the breakdown. I even went as so far to have my son write a letter to the director of special ed at the time, Mr. Dunn, asking for more help. He didn't want to take a foreign language. He wanted to get more help in his first language. And, you know, the reply was very cold, and a copy of my prize right book, which I didn't really need. I'm a special ed teacher. I, you know, hired a tutor for him out of my own pocket. I help him on my own. So Sammy is not going to be, you know, one of the children who ends up in prison, because I will make sure that doesn't happen. But what about for all the kids that don't have that kind of parent advocating for them? You know, the research suggests that you shouldn't be required, if the child wants to take a foreign language, great, but it's more important to address their first language. You don't need to take a foreign language at middle school. Middletown tries to say that you do, but it's not required. Use those minutes for, you know, what he really needs, which is to learn his first language. You know, I've also asked for the advisory block to be used for that. And I'm just met with roadblocks. You know, thank goodness his teachers are amazing and we're making it work to the best of our ability, but it could be much better. And I know that there's many other dyslexic children out there who aren't getting what they deserve, and it upsets me.
Thanks for your patience, Laura.
I just want to address about the split with the children who at Middletown Village who would go to maybe Thorne. Bayshore has been doing it for years. There are children who have gone to Fairview and Bayview that go to North, and kids that go to Leonardo and Navesink, they go to South. So why is it okay that my child loses her friends, and it's not okay for that side? There's such a double standard, it's disgraceful. And don't even get me started on a voucher. Because if you get a voucher, I want a voucher. Because we all pay the same tax rate. And just because my school, Fairview, went to South at one point and then was put into the North School. Where's my voucher? I don't get a voucher. Not that I would want one, I'm just saying. The township has set up these double standards.
Absolutely.
It's not fair, it has to stop. North and South need to be equal. Equal.
Can I ask you to elaborate on a voucher, please?
Well, there is a voucher, you get to choose.
Oh, okay.
Which school you go to, North or South.
Your steps in today.
Good digestion.
Hi, my name is Marcy. I live in Belford, and I have a son at Harmony. Maura is my son's teacher. She's awesome. And my daughter just started kindergarten this year at Bayview. And I just wanted to add a personal note to what Maura was talking about. My babysitter lives in Leonardo. She went to South. She started off her educational career at Leonardo, then she went to Bayshore. And I met her through the Little Eagles program that my daughter was in at South. And it amazed me when she came to her first appointment at my house to watch my kids then. She was only coming a mile away. And I said, wow, you live in Leonardo, but yet you go all the way to South. She's like, yeah, she gave me this long story about how her graduation at Bayshore was awful, which should have been a happy and exciting time about going off into high school. It was actually, she said, very traumatic for her and her friends because they found out that they were being split up. And she said, we were all crying unhappily at our graduation ceremony because of what was to come. And I thought to myself, because I thought, well, God, my kids are going to be going through the same thing. What 14-year-old has the emotional capacity to deal with something like that? You know, high school enough is hard, all on its own, between the peer pressure and the insecurities that all teenagers go through, no matter what your socioeconomic background is. So why would we deliberately make it even harder on them? And I just have to say that when I look at the numbers coming in the next 5 years for what our district is going to have to face, whether it's programs being cut or redistricting being done, something has to give at some point. And maybe we start with things that make the most common sense. Why are we busing kids from the furthest point in the district to the farthest high school? They actually have to drive by Tyndall Road to get to their high school. How does that make sense? So can we at least maybe start with what makes the most common sense when we are coming to Form 2 and coming to Form 3 for what we want to see change, occur in these next 5 years? Because I think something's going to have to give, and I would hate to think it's going to be my kids or your kids' programs that are either necessities for their life or just bring enrichment to their education and their life in general, and it's going to take them that much further in the long run. So that was just my personal note I wanted to say.
Thanks, I wasn't sure. Hi, my name is Cheryl Heidke. I am a graduate of Middletown High School North in 1987, back when it was Lion Country and that football team always won. I've been a teacher in this district at Leonardo. I student taught at Lincroft, and I also did a long-term gig at Middletown as a kindergarten teacher. And I've also had 3 sons who've gone through the school district. So you could say I've seen a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different roles. One of the things that you hit so nicely is the same issue that has been happening since the 1980s. There has always been a divide in this town between Middletown High School North and Middletown High School South. And one of the things that we discussed, and am I supposed to be facing you? Does it matter? Okay. All right. One of the things we discussed when Karen Bilbao was superintendent here, we brought it up during strategic planning, was what are we doing to get rid of that stigma? And the way you're going to do it, in my opinion, is by redesigning the environment of this district. At that time, real estate prices were extremely high, and they looked at actually closing down some of the schools, selling off that land to garner new resources, and we talked about actually making one big high school. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do this. You could look at how are you using your elementary schools? Do they have to go K through 5? Could they become pre-K through 3s? Could you use your middle schools as 4 through 6s? And then take your high schools and make those 7, 8, 9s. Let's say back when I was here, middle school was 7, 8, 9. And then have one powerhouse high school. And people are against this, and the argument, people were crying, they were in tears. Oh, my son won't get a scholarship, there won't be as many sports. But actually, by sort of consolidating that, you could offer more things. You could offer more sports, more clubs, more theater. You would take your marching bands and make them back to what they used to be. You could offer more musical opportunities and theatrical opportunities. There's a lot more you could do. So I think, we all know this stigma, it's been around for years, and I was that kid who went to Village and Thompson and then walked into North with 5 kids that I knew. And it's hard, and in an age when we are looking at mindfulness and social emotional learning, we really do need to be cognizant of that. So that would be my recommendation. One powerhouse high school, and then you've removed the stigma, you've repurposed how you've used your facilities, and you're still giving people that opportunity to be in their neighborhood schools and to also have their siblings together, throughout the That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Patty Thorne. I have 2 children at South. We did Village, Thompson, and South. And I also have a sophomore in college who went through Middletown schools, graduated, and she had a wonderful experience. Like now at college, she tells me what a great education she got at Middletown, so I do applaud our entire school district. Thank you, everyone. I also wanted to say that I was involved in the long-range planning committee. Remember a few years ago, we came up with those recommendations that were basically completely ignored, and the district did I hate saying to just pick on Village, because it was, of course, other kids who were, not other kids, other schools who were being affected as well, but it was primarily village school that was affected. And as much as, like you were saying, how it's terrible to be picked on because your kids are going to North, it's kind of terrible as a village parent to constantly be told those kids are given a choice. That's so not fair. And I know some people don't mean it like to blame the kids, but I'm just giving my perspective that it's also hard to be a village parent, to be on that side of things, which is, you know, they grow up, it's fine. My notes are definitely a little bit unorganized. One of our recommendations was to give the kids at Bayshore, who were totally told that they had to go to North or South, was to give those kids a choice as well as those village kids who were given a choice. And that was never considered. We were told that was not going to be an option. Another thing we came up with was to tell the kids, or to have the kids who went to Bayshore that they were going to North, and tell the kids who went to Thompson that they were all going to South, and that was completely ignored. I hope that this doesn't just become about redistricting. I hated that about when I was involved in the long-range planning plan. This district, the parents in this school district, it always becomes about just redistricting when there are so many other options that we should look at. There are buildings that are older. There are other options that other people here have brought up. It should not just be about redistricting. It should be about looking at the whole school district. The size of the buildings, the cost effectiveness of how the older buildings are being used. Is it worth it to close one school and build onto another so that those schools are being used more effectively? Another thing we came up with is, because of the shifting population and because it seems like, you know, they're building in different areas and different schools are affected at different times, was to use temporary structures. And I understand that, you know, that was shut down as well. And I'm not saying any of those were good, but the only thing that came out of that was that we needed to redistrict. And it was so frustrating to be involved in that, to give up so much of our time, to come up with different options besides just affecting one school primarily. There are other options. I hope that the board looks at all the other options, doesn't just say, let's redistrict this one school, and then in 10 years we're going to do it again, we're going to have to do it again because the school moves. I moved here from Brooklyn, New York, so I understand about, you know, what a good school district is versus what a bad school district is. When I moved here, Middletown is a great school district. That's all I looked at. So my kids, when I was told that they were going to go to Village and then Thompson, and then they had a choice, that's what I looked at. It was never, and I have family at North, so I understand that both high schools, both middle schools, all the schools teach exactly the same. It became more about my kids staying with their peers so that they wouldn't be affected like your kids. I think that's terrible. I think that that was terrible. So in closing, I hope that it doesn't just become about redistricting.
Pretty loud. I don't know if I need a microphone. I just want to say I am not only a parent.
We just wanted to make sure the mic was there. Very good. We got the mic.
I'm not
Good.
loud anyway. I'm from Middletown. I'm not going to tell you exactly where, because I don't think it matters, to be honest. We have been on both sides of 35 in the last, 4 or 5 years. I have 3 children, 2 are currently in school, and I also teach in district. I teach at Bayshore. I don't know what kid goes to North. I don't know what kid goes to South. They're my kids. It's long, no. They are the same kids that I get that come in that day every morning, smiling faces, or whatever it is. They're just my kids, and it is, and that's how it is. I think the stigma, but that starts with us as adults, and we need to just cut it out here, because they wouldn't understand it unless they hear it from us, and that's where it's coming from. But just to give some perspective, my kids were at Enrollment a couple of years ago, and my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, juvenile diabetes. That school rallied behind me. It was a family school. I mean, my son's kindergarten teacher, his first grade teacher, the principal, the nurse, everyone came together as a family, a K through 5 family, and it was wonderful.
Then we moved and we were at Nutswamp last year, and it was the same exact thing with Mr. Leone. It is a family. My son he's in 3rd grade now, he has friends in 5th grade, and then my little one is in 1st grade, and I have another one coming up in 2 years. And no matter what school you go to in Middletown, you have that family, and that's what we love about being here. You know, and it was just, for whatever it is, I love the fact that my child, you know, like I said, there are peer leaders in each one of these schools, and these older kids we're training these older kids to take this responsibility and to take these younger ones into whatever it is, and help them, show them this maturity. And, you know, I love teaching in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade with these kids because I get to watch them grow. You know, and I like the fact that my 6th graders are, little 6th graders, they're looking up to the 8th graders. They have that, and then they know, you know, and you don't see it, I don't see it in middle school. I don't know where that divide is, you know, as a teacher. And I think it really needs to start with us here as in the parents and the adults. And they need to see that. And, you know, as a sport, I've also coached. Yeah, I don't coach anymore now, I'm a chauffeur. And that's all I do, from one sport to the next to the next. But I did coach before I had children, and I coached at North, and I coached at Bayshore. And it's just, they're all the same. They're an amazing group of kids. And they sometimes like that rivalry. They have friends. My Bayshore kids have friends in Tulsa. They have friends at Thorne that they play other sports with, and they're their best friends. And they love going there to the other team. As I was driving out of Nutsville, my Bayshore kids were getting there to play soccer, and they told me, oh, you know, so-and-so's on Thompson's team, and we get to play them, and we're so excited today. And that's what we should be promoting. You know, that positive of playing your friends and, you know, in the different schools. Not that it is a different school, you know, and enjoy that. And, you know, and I also love the community feeling of Middletown, of the fact that I hope my kids will continue to be able at one point to walk to Nutswamp, you know, because we live so close, and walk to Thompson or to South, or that, you know, my other family members we have in other parts of the town are the same thing. I want my niece and nephew to be able to walk to Bayshore and know, oh, you know, their aunt's there, and they're going to be coming here, but it's safe because all their friends and all these other family members are seeing them, and you know so-and-so's house around the lake. I like that feel of the familyness of Middletown, no matter where you go in Middletown. And it is true, it really is. But I just wanted to say that. And I'm like, you know, and also as a teacher, I like to be able to talk and have that community feeling with all the other teachers and all the different grade levels, and so on. I think that's important that we do talk. And, you know, we're able to place kids in the best spot that they can be at. And sometimes it just doesn't work out, and, you know, and it's out of our control. But I do, as a whole, Middletown is a wonderful district. And we wouldn't have moved, you know, my husband commutes almost an hour and a half every day to work, and we wouldn't move out of Middletown because we just love it as a whole. I've loved it no matter what side, and I've kind of been on one side, if you want to choose sides. You know, Bayshore's right in the middle, and then it's amazing no matter where you go. So, pat your back as Middletowns. Let's start thinking about how we can do to keep these kids as, you know, a positive environment for whatever school they're at, whatever middle school they're at, whatever high school that they're at. You know, and sports is, and having all these different programs in the different schools, and a lot of them, is great too, because it keeps these kids, you know, there's something to do after school. I see a whole group of, you know, of kids and getting changed or going to the, you know, they're going, oh, we're going here, we're going there for these after school activities, and it's just amazing. So I do want to say that, you know, let's keep going positive here with Middletown and stick to these family communities that we do have and head in that right direction. So just positive notes.
I have 3 kids. One is in college, went through the village process, South Stratford, a senior at South, and a slate grader in South.
We're going to need
How's that?
perfect.
Okay. I was also on the committee that was responsible for some of the recommendations around what we were going to do with long-term planning that ended up being a redistricting plan, really. And I just want to say that there was definitely a misconception about the village reaction to the redistricting. From my perspective, it had 0 to do with what school my kid went to. Because when I first saw the plan, which was so incredibly different than the parental input, but when I saw the plan, my daughter was going to, unlike her brothers, was going to go to Bayshore and North. And and having a really strong history in sports in North, I was kind of happy about it. But then I realized that she would be one out of 11 of her sort of close group that was going to go in that direction, and that's where I had the problem. And we sort of rallied together to say, if we're going to do this, let's just send them somewhere else. Like, could we do it all together? Our very first recommendation as a parent group was to stop the split at Bayshore. So despite where the parents came from on that ad hoc committee, the very first concern, which was very close to our special education needs, they were kind of tied, was stop taking those 8th graders and splitting them up. It's just wrong, it's wrong. At that stage in their lives, I think that's something that we should address immediately, right? Like now. But as my boys were growing up and playing sports on both sides, we were sitting at the dinner table one night and they basically said, oh, you know, this North-South thing, that's a parent thing, not a student thing. And it's so evident because these kids are very collective. They love each other. So if there's anything that we do in a strategic plan, I would say as parents, can we please make one of our main goals to ensure that we drill down from here down, that we're one community. The building you go to does not matter. And for any parent, and I just want to say one thing though, there were some parents that had an issue when we suggested that the kids have a choice, Bayshore, let them go wherever they want to go, or because of the perceived overcrowding at South, let them all go to North, set everybody together so they're all together. Parents, there were parents that thought that. Yeah. So there we go, like it's, right? So we had we thought a really good solution to moving, right, a bunch of kids. But if you look at those two schools on paper, and me being from New York, when I moved here 20 years ago, I looked at both those schools on paper and realized it didn't really matter where I bought my house, because the schools on paper are identical. And frankly, if you look at the slides, North's doing better than South in some areas. So, but it starts with us, as you just said. We have to try to make a difference, because if we don't, it just trickles down. It's never. I mean, we're doing this 20 years now. You know, the principal at North, right? I was engaged in all of those things with several, you know, the superintendents, and the conversation ends up being exactly what it is right now, a North-South thing.
But it's the parents, it's the kids.
Kids don't care.
They all like each other. They all play sports together.
Hi, Tom Lawson. I'm the principal at Thorne Middle School, and I just wanted to comment on a lot of this. And my story is a little bit like. I just wanted to comment a little bit on piggyback. Dr. Cartier and my story are a little bit similar. I actually grew up and went to Fairview. I grew up in Sunken City. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So a lot of my older siblings actually went to high school when it was one high school. I went to, at that time, it was Fairview, Bayshore, Middletown South, myself and my brother. My immediate older brother went to South. I was a teacher at South. I was an assistant principal at South for several years. I was principal at Nut Swamp. I've been a principal at Thorne for now 10 years. You know, we talk about redistricting, and I hear this all the time like it's a dirty word. It has happened before. How many people have been here? How many were here in the 80s when we did redistrict? Okay, so this is nothing new. So one of the things that I want to go back to the long-range planning committee. I was part of that. I've also been part of strategic planning for the last couple of rounds as well. And what came out of that, what the recommendations were. And I do have to tell you that, again, as a lifelong resident, as a lifelong person in education, that divide, I feel like, has gotten worse over time. And I think about that all the time. When we were going through that, and I'll never forget that infamous board meeting, and I can tell you, it was very real. The rumors and misinformation about this school was appalling to me. It really was. And as we go forward in this process, the important thing is we got to think about what the facts are. And I would say this, I would certainly open up my school to anybody who wanted to come and see what's actually going on, rather than the rumor and innuendo that is out there that creates a lot of this stigma. And as Commissioner Heskey said, he talked about the success of the middle schools. A lot of that is because of what's going on here as well. Although that's not what is perceived on the other side of town, where I was a student and administrator at one time as well. Okay, so I feel like I come from a pretty good perspective here. But there are facts, and there are facts such as this is, a lot of people commented today, oh my gosh, this is the same exact building as Thompson. I was there the other night. Same exact building. Yeah, and Thompson has about 350 more students. That's a fact. When I talk to my colleague, Mr. Curry, and we talk about class sizes, it's a big difference, in a lot of areas. So that's just things that we need to consider going forward. But again, I do worry about that stigma, and how do we eliminate that stigma going forward? Because being here for 10 years, I do feel it. I do feel it, and it's unfortunate. Because when I grew up, it really wasn't there. It really wasn't there. So, that's all I got to say.
Hi, I'm Kristen Rooney. I have 2 children in Navesink Elementary. And to me, one of the most important things, and one of the things that I love the most about our school, is that it's very small and it has a very cozy feel, and it's become like a very big part of our family. So I think it's important for us to remember that we want to keep attracting the teachers that we have in our schools that make them so special. They care about our kids so much and make us feel so safe sending them to these schools, and that we want to not forget our little communities and make sure that we kind of keep that idea in mind when we're planning on school sizes and closing schools and opening schools, and that's really important to us as far as keeping our communities intact.
Hi, I have 2 kids, Middletown, one at Thorne, and I've heard terrible things, and my son loves it here, so thank you. My daughter's in 5th grade at Harmony in the LLD, and I would echo the need for inclusion. She's one of 4 girls in the class, and if you don't mesh with those 3 girls, then socially, you have lunch with a bunch of girls that have been socializing all day. So she really has trouble with that. And then I've heard in middle school that there's 1 girl in the LD class. So just push for inclusion would be my recommendation.
Oh, my voice on the microphone. My name is Jessica Dini. I have 2 little boys, one in Harmony and one in Thorne. And on a positive note, they're both special education students, and the teachers and faculty are fantastic. I come from another school district a while ago that was very much about curing their autism, and we've never had that experience so far in Middletown. They try to help them thrive with who they are instead of trying to change who they are, which is great. That being said, also with the inclusion about maybe having more than 1 classroom that they can be in together, they're included in 1 classroom over here with any child that has any kind of need for an IEP is in that classroom together. And I did have a situation where my son had a little bit of a bullying issue, and he was in that classroom every year for 3 years. He couldn't get out of the classroom. So what we had to do was revoke his IEP and give him a Section 504 just so that he could be in a new environment, in a new situation. And he's doing fantastically now. Emotionally, he's thriving. But academically now, he is maybe struggling a little bit because he had to no longer have those IEP services. So it would be great if children with an IEP could be maybe in more than one classroom, because not every child with an IEP will mesh well. And they should be able to, he didn't know any single child in the new classroom. He never met them because they never got a chance to mesh and meet each other, because they're always the same kids are in the same room every year over and over and over again. So that's
Thank you. All right, we have a few more minutes. We try not to go more than an hour because Stacy's arms fall off at that point. But like I said, fill out the index cards. They're fine. They'll get to the same place. All the data gets to all the information we get goes to the same place. But any other comments? This was tremendous, by the way. We got so much information this morning. We have another comment. No?
Dave, I would like to add.
Okay, sure.
Actually, just from the, first of all, and if there are other questions, that's great, so I'll be really quick. But I just want to say this. To everyone that came and spoke today, thank you. For everyone who spoke from their heart and told how you really feel, it's really important to us as an administrative team, to our teachers who spoke, and to our former teachers that spoke, and all of the residents, our administrative team, Dr. Cartier, Mr. Lawson, thank you so much for your perspective and taking the time. This is really what the board wants. We want to know what you think. And know that we're standing on the sidelines as an administrative team, not because we're not with you, because we want to hear what you have to say, because we are taking notes on our phones and our computers, and we are discussing after, and the thought process is continuous for us, and your input is really valued. I know it's valued by the board, but I want you to know that it's really valued by the staff and by the administrative team, and we're in this process together. We are advocates for your children, just are you as advocates for your children, and what we really want. You want to know what we want as an administrative team? We want equity for all. That's what we want. We want what you want. We want it, and I know that's what the board wants. We want to make sure we're providing the very best services and programs for all of our students, and we really appreciate your feedback.
Thank you, George. Well, this was a lot of work for a Saturday morning, and I can't thank you enough. It's clearly you care deeply about the community and your children. So thank you for participating, and please, please come back to Forum 2, come back to Forum 3. We need you. You're our partners in this. So we'd ask you to do that. All the dates and places are on the website, and we hope to keep it as interactive as today was. So thank you all, and be safe and enjoy the weekend.
He's given me the last word. I just want to say I'm moved by your comments today, and they were really important, and I'm glad you took the opportunity, because really what I was hearing underneath all that is, I hear that one community is kind of a baseline operative phrase here, but boy, I felt it by hearing you all talk. So you've got that power. Use it, and we're here for you. Thank you.
Come on up, just come up.
Yeah, come on up.
I'm struggling whether to say or not say, but I do want to support the mom that spoke about children with dyslexia. So I have something in common with almost every comment in here. I am the mom that moved from New York, so I'm living here almost half my life, 23 years in New Jersey, and half was spent in Brooklyn. I was a teacher in Brooklyn. I'm a teacher here, also at Harmony Elementary. I am the mom of 3 daughters, 2 which have graduated from High School North, and they are from what I can say, paths of success at this point, ages 20, 18, and my youngest is 15, just started freshman year. She is the product of Bayshore, who has been split, and I had to encourage and be positive to this 15-year-old girl who misses her friends that went to South, but thankfully, because God is good, met up at the football game last night. So they've reconnected, and to just keep on saying that your friendship is not ending, but it is traumatic for that age group, because high school is horrific for young girls and boys. The last thing is, again, back to dyslexia. Our district's come a long way. The training that is presented to teachers has far improved over the last years, but we do have teachers that also have been trained, and they have the power to help so many more children. But then there's roadblocks, and my middle daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia, but because of her age, has moved through the schools, which were Fairview and Bayshore and North, which I mentioned, moved through the schools where she didn't have those opportunities, or she didn't score low enough to receive that extra tutoring or that extra support. So not only was she diagnosed outside, which cost me personally thousands of dollars, where it is in our school, and I pay thousands of dollars as the taxpayer. So it's just finding that balance, what we can provide to, again, help those kids, because I think when you spoke to those becoming criminals, it's based on frustration, because dyslexic kids, people, and from all the books I've read, from the Orton Gillingham training that I myself went through to help my daughter, you realize, you start to self-diagnose, and you start to say to yourself, that's what I went through. Then my husband self-diagnosed. So our kids were doomed from the beginning. They all, and the oldest one, who is primarily, she's got, and I do remember her third grade veteran teacher saying she's got a great vocabulary, but she's fooling us all, just because she could compensate better. So we talk about spectrums. It does happen with dyslexic kids. You can have someone that's severely dyslexic, moderate, or mild, but it affects them, and it affects them to the point of frustration. So hence, to keep the kids in school, to keep them learning or on a path of learning, no matter how it is, I hope we can. The earliest intervention is best, because someone else said that, and hence that's when my 15-year-old gave her the proper tutoring that she needed when she was in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. Hence, she's in honors classes, so she's soared through, and it just to figure out, I wanted to add support to you. So, thanks for listening. Sorry to laugh.
We'll be here if you want to chat with us or say something you didn't want to say in public, so feel free to come on up and spend some time.
Have a good day, everybody.